They warn me not to flirt with the Sherikai that do not engage. Do not joke. And whatever you do not comment on their height. The diplomats were very clear. They are warriors, not women. Sacred, disciplined, bred for combat, bonded only through blood and battle.so. Obviously, I flirted with one.it wasn't even intentional. We were docked on Kareth, 9 for cargo alignment, and I was half sleep-deprived and over-caffeinated. That's when she walked in. 7 feet tall, in armor that looked like it was carved from meteorite, violet skin glowing under the overhead lights, and eyes that tracked me like I owed her a fight. And I, Quinn Mallory, cargo logistics technician, and sarcastic mess of a human, muttered without thinking, "Damn, do all war goddesses come with that jawline or just the tall ones?" She stopped. Her soldiers froze. My buddy whispered, "Run." Too late. She marched toward me, boots heavy on steel deck plating, stopped inches from my face, and said in a low voice, "You speak boldly. Is that a mating overture?" I blinked. What? No. I mean, well, unless that works, in which case yes. I winced immediately. Sorry, that was sarcasm. Her eyes narrowed. Her pupils dilated vertically. You offered flirtation. I accept. Then she extended her gauntlet hand and sliced a thin line across her palm. You shall complete the trials. Then we will bond. I laughed nervously. I'm pretty sure there's been a cultural misunderstanding here. She reached up, touched my forehead with her blooded hand, and whispered, "You are mine now, soft one." And that's how I learned that sarcasm is a mating ritual to the Sherikai. She thinks I just proposed. I think I'm about to it didn't take long before my day got worse. Apparently, once a Sherikai accepts a mating overture, things move fast. As in, military escort you to a diplomatic chamber fast. I was escorted by 4 soldiers with weapons the size of my torso, none of whom blinked the entire way, and sitting in the middle of that chamber, flanked by armored sentinels, was the same woman who had casually declared me hers. She introduced herself as High Commander Talitha Vey. The name sounded like it could cut through stone. She certainly looked the part. Up close, her armor bore the marks of dozens of campaigns, and the ceremonial scars on her cheekbones shimmered faintly under the lights. You may speak, she said that I cleared my throat. Hi. Yeah. So, funny story about earlier. See, where I'm from, what I said. That wasn't a proposal. That was a bad pickup line. Like really bad. Talitha blinked once. You invoked the right of vow flame. I did. You referenced her physical form in the context of union, then made an offering of your vulnerability. Verbal sarcasm in the presence of her honor guard. You got all that from a jawline compliment. You offered submission cloaked in bravado. The Sherikai accept no higher form of tribute. I was going to vomit, or faint, or both. Okay, but I didn't know. Knowledge of ritual is not required for the vow to bind. I turned toward the diplomatic assistant beside me. She looked like she was trying very hard not to burst into tears or laughter. Can we undo this? Void the ritual? Call a timeout. Talitha rose. No. The trials must proceed. You shall be tested for worth. Worth? To see if you are fit to remain by my side. And if I fail, then you die. She said it so casually, I nearly choked on my own tongue. They didn't kill me that day. That was the good news. The bad news? I was now considered an unofficial consort under Sherikai tradition, which meant being placed under observation, dressed in ceremonial silks, and fed nutrient paste that smelled like a corpse's regrets. The ship was enormous. 20 decks of warbound efficiency wrapped around a central atrium, filled with statues of past commanders and murals of blood battles. The whole place screamed discipline, which made me stand out like a marshmallow in a blaster factory. Everywhere I went, they watched me, whispered about me. One guard called me the soft one. Another just shook his head and muttered, "He's still alive?" I started trying to talk. To Talitha again. Not flirt, obviously. Just clarify things. Explain that this was all a mistake. That I was just a guy who shipped boxes and occasionally flirted with vending machines when they didn't take my credits. But every conversation went like this. Talitha, we need to talk. Speak, consort. This is a misunderstanding. The blood says otherwise. I didn't mean to offer you my blood. Yet you did. With honor. I tripped and bumped into your dagger. And did not cry out. Noble restraint. I couldn't win. Every excuse I made became another symbol of worth. By the end of day 3, the whispers had changed. He survived the fire. Ritual. He declined the ceremonial robes. A sign of rebellion. She smiled at him. Once. In private. Talitha herself became strange. Less terrifying. Still terrifying adjacent. But now in a will she hold my hand or snap my neck kind of way. She began visiting during meals. Asking questions. Why do you eat standing up? Why do humans laugh at danger? Why do your people bond over pain? She wasn't just interrogating me. She was studying me. And not like a science project. Like, she cared what I had to say. And me? God help me. I started looking forward to it. The first time she laughed, a real, honest laugh, was when I told her about Earth's attempt to weaponize ostriches. She laughed so hard she choked on her drink. And then she wiped her mouth, leaned in, and said, "You will make the trial of flame." Interesting. I didn't know what that meant, but I was starting to hope. Maybe being her consort wouldn't be the worst thing in the galaxy. Then came the summons that a soldier approached me in my quarters. The High Commander requests your presence. In the trial hall. The rite of worth begins at dawn. Talitha met me outside the chamber. She looked radiant. Terrifying. Beautiful. Queen of Earth. Are you prepared to face the trials that determine your place at my side? I swallowed hard. Do I have a choice? She smiled slowly. Not anymore. I expected the trial hall to be a gladiator pit. Flames, spikes, lava, chanting cultists. Maybe even a ceremonial beast or two. Instead, it looked like a courtroom designed by a military cult with a love for minimalism and holograms. Black stone walls. Sharp white lighting. Floating glyphs suspended in midair like frozen music. Dozens of silent, armored Sharakai watching from balcony rows above. Talitha stood in the center, flanked by elders wearing robes instead of armor. That somehow made them more terrifying. That I was led in by two warriors who handled me like a slightly radioactive egg. Not quite dangerous, but definitely strange. The consort shall now face the first phase. An elder intoned. The trial of honor. A table rose from the ground. On it, a series of ceremonial objects. A dagger, a scroll, a bowl of blood-red liquid. And, was that a teddy bear? Choose, Talitha said simply. Each item represents a path. The one you pick determines your challenge. I blinked. Are you seriously gamifying this? She didn't answer. I looked at the objects. The dagger looked dangerous. The scroll looked boring. The bowl was probably a drinking challenge. And considering Sharakai drank fermented adrenaline venom, that wasn't appealing. I picked up the teddy bear. Gasps echoed. Talitha tilted her head, intrigued. Unorthodox. The bear vanished. A floor tile slid open. A small, shrieking creature leapt out and latched onto my leg. About the size of a large cat, but with 6 limbs and way too many teeth. Trial accepted, the elder announced. What? What is this? It is a bonded larva of the Karnathi. They sense weakness. Survive its companionship for 6 hours without sedation, and you pass. The thing was currently chewing on my boot. Does that mean it's trying to kill me or cuddle me? Both. Talitha said. The larva, whom I named Murder Pup, became my trial companion. He screeched every time I sat down, shrieked when I tried to sleep, and only calmed when I hummed old Earth jazz. After 6 hours, I was scratched, bitten, half-deaf, and emotionally destroyed, but I passed. The next trial came quickly. I was brought to what looked like an open-air forge surrounded by what I can only describe as battle monks. Trial of creation, the priest announced. Construct a bonding symbol from these materials. You have 2 hours. No help. No breaks. The materials? A lump of alien or that radiated heat, something that looked like crystallized bone, and a type of sap that stuck to everything. There were no tools. No instructions. I stared at the materials. Can I YouTube this? Proceed, the priest said. The bone snapped when I tapped it wrong. The herb burned my fingers. The sap got in my hair, but I kept going. Eventually, I carved a rough heart shape into the bone, embedded the metal into its center, and smeared sap over it to hold it together. It was ugly. It was lopsided. It was mine. When I presented it, Talitha examined it for a long time. Primitive, she said. Thanks. I went forward, terrified but trying. She held it up. It shows effort, intention, care despite ignorance. She wore it on a chain around her neck. The crowd roared. I passed again. At this point, I started noticing whispers. Guards calling me the clever one. Warriors murmuring, he survived the larva. Even the priest who once looked at me like a space cockroach now nodded respectfully. Talitha began standing closer. Not too close. Just enough that I could feel her presence. Warm, intense, magnetic. She started asking me questions during our debriefs. What do humans fear the most? What does awkward mean? Why do you speak in half-truths? We sat under artificial stars once while she listened to me ramble about Earth movies. You do not fear death, she said. You fear irrelevance. Pretty much, I admitted. She looked away. So do we. I didn't know what to say, so I handed her a protein bar. She accepted it like it was a sacred relic. The third trial was worse. It was the trial of isolation. I was placed in a sensory deprivation chamber with nothing but my thoughts and a simulation AI that randomly triggered memories that I relived my worst breakup. The day I left Earth. The time my dad told me, being average isn't enough. I cried. I screamed. I curled up and begged for the lights to come back on. And when they did, she was there. Talitha knelt beside me. Unarmed. Unarmored. I felt your pain, she said. No, you didn't, I whispered. You weren't there. She nodded slowly. But I listened. She took my hand. It is not strength to hide your fear. It is strength to show it. I passed. That night, she visited me alone. No guards. No priesthood. No rituals. Just her. She sat across from me and said nothing for a long time. Then, you have passed every trial. You should feel proud. I mostly feel exhausted. She smiled slightly. You have not failed once. That is rare. Beginner's luck. She leaned in. No, it is hard. I froze. You speak as though you do not belong here. But you do. Not because you are Sherakai, but because you are you. My chest ached. I didn't want this, I whispered. But now I'm scared to lose it. Her hand touched my face. You're almost worthy. My heart stuttered. Almost. The next day began with a spear to my face. Literally. I woke up to the sound of boots stomping, doors slamming, and a priest holding what looked like a glowing war spear an inch from my nose. Rise, consort, he barked. Your combat trial begins. Now. I groaned. I haven't had coffee yet. He didn't laugh. They never do. They marched me out in front of a crowd of elite warriors, all watching from stone platforms while I stood in the middle of a combat pit armed with what looked like a sharpened tuning fork and a shield the size of a dinner plate. Across from me stood my opponent, Commander Thurok, who looked like Talitha's taller, meaner cousin. 8 feet of muscle, twin scarred jaws, and a ceremonial blade longer than my body. The trial of blade, the elder announced. Survive. That is all. Cool. Just survive. Easy. Thurok lunged at me like an oncoming meteor. I screamed, rolled, threw my weapon like a frisbee, and sprinted for the edge of the pit.my weapon bounced harmlessly off his shoulder. He laughed. Oh great, I muttered. He has a sense of humor. That's worse. But I remembered something Talitha had said before. The blade is not the weapon. The weapon is the one who knows what to protect. So I started doing something stupid. I fought with distraction. I shouted nonsense. Taunted him with earth jokes. Tossed sand in his face. At one point, I tripped, and he nearly cut his own foot trying to strike where I had been. After 12 minutes of chaos, dodging, and complete humiliation, I accidentally caused him to knock over one of the ceremonial torches. The flame licked. His leg he froze. The crowd went silent. Then Thurok dropped his blade, knelt, and muttered, "Clever little starworm." I yield. The arena exploded into cheers. Talitha stood at the balcony above me, one hand gripping the railing tightly. She didn't smile, but her eyes glowed with something new. Respect. I was escorted back to my chamber like a war hero. Except my back hurt, my knees were bruised, and I had sweat in places I didn't know could sweat. He visited me in the infirmary. You disarmed Thurok with nonsense, she said. I prefer to call it innovative survival instincts. You insulted his clan. You mocked his blade. You threw sand in his face. I tripped into the sand. That was improvisation. She stared at me. Then, finally laughed. Softly. Just once. I understand now, she said. Why your people survive despite fragility. You mean despite being soft and annoying? Exactly. Later that night, I was taken to the Temple of Echoes for the second challenge. The trial of creation, again, but this time, it was different. Forge something that reflects your intent, the priest instructed. You may use any material. There are no rules. A table stood before me with various metals, stones, glass, and wood. All alien materials. Some humming. Some shifting. I picked up a translucent metal sheet that resonated when I touched it. And a shard of dark bone-like crystal. This wasn't about surviving. This was about speaking without words. So I crafted a pendant. The shape was rough, a spiral. Sun wrapped in chaotic shards. It symbolized Earth's chaos and the way I'd been caught in her orbit. I embedded a piece of my broken trial blade into its center. When I presented it, Talitha stepped forward to take it in her hands. She didn't speak at first, just studied it, then slid the cord over her neck and tucked the pendant beneath her chest plate. I will wear it in every battle, she said. It'll probably bring you bad luck. I muttered. She looked at me with something different in her eyes. You bring balance to the storm. I didn't know how to respond to that. So I just stood there, suddenly aware of how close she was. How tall, how calm, how warm her presence felt. She touched my jaw. You are not yet finished. The final trial was the trial of heart. That it wasn't physical. It wasn't creative. It was emotional. I stood in a chamber surrounded by the elders. Talitha seated in the center, regal and composed. The final question, the high elders said, is whether you understand the soul you seek to bind with. I blinked. That's not terrifying at all. The elder nodded. You must speak of her. In truth. In front of her. Without rehearsal. Without lies. I looked at Talitha. She looked back, stoic. So I spoke. Talitha Vey is terrifying. I began. Gasps. A few murmurs. She's tall, strong, smart. The kind of person who could conquer a planet with a glare. But that's not what makes her powerful. I took a deep breath. She listens. She waits. She doesn't rush to judge. She asked me about my world, my culture, my jokes. She laughed. When I didn't expect her to. She stood by me when I broke down. She never mocked my weakness. She honored it. I looked directly at her now. You made me feel seen in a way no one else has. You scared me. Then you changed me. I don't know if I'm ready for this, but I don't want to go back to a life where you're not in it. A long silence followed. Then the elder spoke. The consort has answered. His heart is open. Talitha stood. She approached slowly, her eyes softer than I'd ever seen. She placed a hand on my chest. You're almost worthy, she whispered. I smiled faintly. Almost. She leaned closer, her voice barely audible. One final step remains. There was no trial the next morning. No alarms. No summons. No priest outside my door with a glowing weapon or a ceremonial sash that looked suspiciously like a leash, just silence. And a note. Observation deck. Come alone. Talitha's handwriting was sharp. Elegant. Just like her, the deck was quiet when I arrived. Stars stretched across the viewing dome like ancient scars. We were in deep drift. No jumps, no battles, just coasting through space on a ship that felt too big for the quiet. She stood at the edge, arms folded behind her back, wearing something halfway between armor and silk. A ceremonial blend, I guessed. She didn't look at me right away. I come here when I feel uncertain, she said softly. I didn't know you could feel uncertain. She gave a humorless smile. No one does. That's the point. I stepped beside her, quiet. I thought once the trials were over, I'd feel victorious, she said. Instead, I feel exposed. Join the club. She looked at me now, really looked. Her eyes weren't cold or analytical. They were searching. You were never meant for this. Our customs are violent, unforgiving. You stumbled into them with foolishness and laughter, and somehow endured. I laughed bitterly. Survived, maybe. Endured feels generous. But you didn't run. I wanted to. So many times. Then why didn't you? I leaned on the railing beside her. Because of you. Her breath hitched, just barely. But I caught it. I've spent most of my life being average, I said. Background noise in someone else's story. And then suddenly, I was in yours. This towering, terrifying, beautiful woman thought I was worth testing. Worth judging. Worth seeing. I turned to her. And then you laughed. And then you listened. And I think I stopped feeling like a mistake. Silence again. But not cold this time. Heavy. Waited. Talitha's voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper. I was bred for war. Trained from the age of 3 to command, to kill, to uphold a legacy that spans centuries. I was never meant to feel. But you do. I do. With you. She turned fully toward me now, her hand reaching up to touch the pendant I had forged. When I wear this, I feel the chaos of your people. The warmth. The irrational, beautiful fire that keeps burning even when the winds rise. She stepped closer. I've lost warriors. I've lost battles. But the thought of losing you terrifies me in a way no blade ever has. I didn't speak, didn't move. Couldn't. Her hand rose, trembling now, and touched my face again. You're not just almost worthy anymore, she whispered. I reached up and took her hand in mine. Then what's next? Her eyes searched mine. Not for answers, just for truth. Now we choose. Not because the ritual says so. Not because the elders demand it. But because we want to. We stood like that for a long time, stars drifting beyond the glass. Her fingers still resting on my jaw, my pulse wild and steady under her touch. Do you, she asked. Want to? Yes, I said. God's yes. She exhaled, then smiled. Not a warrior's grin. Not a commander's smirk. A woman's smile. The smile of someone who had waited a lifetime to be chosen back. Then prepare yourself, she said. The final rite begins at dusk. No tests. No combat. Just us. I leaned my forehead against hers. I'll be there. The bonding ceremony wasn't grand. There were no legions. No fire rituals. No battle hymns echoing across the ship's hallways. Just Talitha, me, and the stars. The chamber they chose for the rite of choice was small, intimate. Designed not for war or legacy, but for two beings to stand as equals. There were witnesses. Silent warriors, elders, and ship kin. But they stood back, reverent. Their weapons were left outside. The room smelled of warm oils, starflower incense, and something I later learned was meant to calm the blood. Thalia stood at the center in robes lined with her command glyphs. Chest plate removed, scars exposed. Armor left behind. No gauntlets. No blades. I had never seen her look so real, so powerful in her stillness. She reached out first. Open palms. No command. Just invitation. I stepped into her space, the silence wrapping around us like a second skin. Do you stand by me freely? She asked. Yes. Do you choose me, beyond duty, beyond trials, beyond the eyes of others? I do. Then say it. She whispered. I looked up into her eyes. I choose you, Talitha Vey. Warrior. Commander. Soulmate. You terrified me. Changed me. And now you hold my heart. A sound rippled through the room. A deep harmonic pulse as the ship acknowledged the bond. Talitha placed one hand on my chest, one over my heart, and said in her native tongue, from battle, I claimed him. From fire, he remained. From truth, he chose. And now he is mine. And just like that, the rite was complete. No kiss. No theatrics. But something passed between us, something real, something eternal. Later, we sat together beneath the observation dome. No guards. No obligations, just her and I. And stars. You're awfully quiet, I said. She smirked. I am processing the fact that I am now bound to a human who once tried to forge a pendant using glue. Hey, that glue was sacred. I kept it, you know. The pendant. She nodded. It reminds me that strength does not always roar. Sometimes it stammers. Sometimes it jokes. She reached into her robes and pulled out the lopsided pendant. But it never stops showing up. I took her hand. I still don't know if I'm worthy of you. You are, she said. Not because you passed our tests, but because you let me see the truth in you. And you saw the truth in me. Which is, she kissed my forehead, that I never wanted. A consort. Until I met the one who made me wish I did. Much later, when the stars drifted and the ship moved through hyperspace again, someone knocked on our chamber door. A messenger. Commander, the High Council requests your presence. And your consorts. Why? She asked. They want to recognize the Union and offer Earth an alliance through him. I blinked. Wait, am I a diplomat now? Talitha stood tall, hands still in mine. No, she said. You're mine, and I will go wherever you walk. She looked at me with that same smirk she wore the day I first met her and whispered, besides, this all started with a love bite. Might as well see where it ends. Final line. She thinks I'm her soulmate. Turns out, she's mine too.